We're back at the Combine 2026 on Radio Row with Charles Arbuckle. I'm Matt Taylor, and the head man, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, Shane Steichen, nice enough to join us for a few minutes, taking time out of your busy schedule. Let's start there. What is the Combine like for you? How many different balls are you juggling this week here downtown at the convention center and inside Lucas Oil Stadium?
Right now is a big media day with you guys, so going through that right now. And then obviously after that, we'll go through our interviews. We have our formal interviews with the players, the workouts, and we go through that process obviously throughout the week, and that's where it's at right now.
I mean, do you get a chance to breathe, or is it just all football all the time?
It's all football. We get just a little break here and there to obviously grab a bite to eat, but it's basically football and evaluating these players.
All right, speaking of evaluation, let's start there. Daniel Jones, I'm sure you had to evaluate him very high, especially in those first 10 games of the season when he was completely healthy. I know you and I have talked a lot about this over the course of the year, but how much – I know you can't say anything in terms of contracts, but what did he mean to this offense and his ability to help galvanize the locker room and put it into a really good spot?
Yeah, he meant a lot. Obviously, the start that we got off to there at 8-2 was huge, and he was playing winning football for us and completing passes and throwing touchdowns and take care of the football, and we were winning games. And what he was able to do in that stretch was pretty impressive. And obviously he had the leg injury, with the broken leg, playing through that, and then obviously he had the unfortunate deal with an Achilles. But what he was able to do for us was huge for us.
Coach, when you look at it from the standpoint of the offseason, you being the play caller, self-scouting yourself, going back through and just trying to figure out, hey, how can we get better? How can I get better as a play caller? What does that look like for you once the season's over to now to when the season starts?
Yeah, it's a good question. We'll go through, and I'll go back and watch every game through last year, starting with the first one, and just go through it. Obviously, situations that could come up in the game, hey, this situation comes up again, like maybe we could have done this a little bit better. And that's a self-scout, reflection process that we go through. And then also we go through, we look around trends around the league, around college football, whatever that may be. You're always trying to grow and make sure you're getting better as an offensive unit, whether it's scheme or whatever you're doing, how you're practicing. And you're always looking at self-reflection and ways to grow and get better. And so we take that time here throughout the offseason, and then going into spring with the players.
I know analytics play a big role, but also probably feel or things that you do. So tell us a little bit about that, just how you look at the analytics, get the self-scouting, and then this is what I feel like we need to do.
Yeah, I've never really dove into this in depth, but you guys are going to get a good in depth about the analytics. I use the analytics. Obviously, they're a big part of the game right now, and obviously a part of it is the fourth down decisions. A lot of people, if you go for it on fourth down and it works, right, it's a great call. If you don't, it's like, well, what are we doing? But I think there is a time and a place for it. I think there's certain situations when you are in your minus territory, you got to be very smart in that situation. But when you get around midfield and you're at the 50 to the plus 40, that is a unique area. It's a long field goal. You're probably out of field goal range. You probably don't want to punt there because, the field position's not that big of a difference. So you got to be smart in those situations. And so that's when the play calling comes into effect. There was a game, I think, 2 years ago. It was 3rd and 14 at the, I think it was the minor plus 48. And I'm like, well, it's going to be hard to convert this thing here. So I'm going to call a run here and get it hopefully to the 40 or whatever and cut it down and kick a field goal. And then, next thing you know, we lost, we didn't get a yard. And it was like, why'd you run it there? What are we doing?
You're an idiot.
Yeah, well, you had 2 downs in your mind.
Yeah, and my man was like, hey, we got 2 downs, because if we throw incomplete there, you're 4th and 14.
Right.
And so you're punting for sure. So, hey, let's try to run it here. And then, hey, maybe we can go for it on 4th down, or we'll get it closer to a field goal. And you run it and you get no yards and you got to punt. It's like, what was that? Why would they run it there? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that plays into it.
No doubt about it. Shane Steichen with us here on Radio Row. We talked about Daniel Jones. Again, I know you can't talk about contracts, but Alec Pierce is a big free agent as well. Over 1,000 yards on just 47 catches.
It's pretty impressive.
That's unbelievable. What did he mean? How many different dynamics did he bring to the offense to being able to unlock the offense for it to be able to reach its full potential?
Well, I mean, as we know, just from a fan's perspective, and as we know as coaches, his big playability is huge for our offense. His yards per catch, I think, the past 2 years he's led the league in yards per catch. But he's also added the element, of the intermediate stuff to his game as well, that one-on-ones on the outside, the in cuts, all that stuff. He's continuing to grow in that area and getting better every year at doing that. And I think Reggie's done a hell of a job developing him into that.
Yeah. And he wasn't really known for that prior to this year, or at least we didn't see it as much. What steps did he take to make sure that was prevalent part of his game?
Yeah, I think he did a hell of a job in the offseason working on it. You know what I mean? Coming out of his breaks, working on certain routes that we wanted to use him on because we know he's a speed guy. So if you can get guys running down the field fast, these DBs are going to turn and open their hips, and then you can run the comebacks on them one-on-one on the outside, get them turning and run those in-breaking cuts, and he did a hell of a job with it.
Off-season, you also had Marion Hobby, who I played against when he was in New England.
Yeah.
I think that's a great pickup, but also, too, defense in this draft could really play dividends or free agency.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you see on the defensive side. We always spend time with you on offense, but you attack those guys every day.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited about our defense going into next year. I think with Lou's scheme going into year 2 in that system, and the guys feeling more comfortable with that system, and just the terminology and the communication that happens from the front to the linebackers to the back end is going to be huge, for our defense. But excited about our defense. Obviously, Latu, he's coming on. I'm really excited to make another jump, for him to make another jump this year. And obviously getting Sauce, getting him healthy, obviously an elite corner there. And then Cam Bynum and the rest of the pieces and getting, Buckner back healthy is going to be big for us.
In that regard, do you feel like last year was kind of an incomplete grade for the defense? Right? I don't want to take away anything that anybody else did in terms of personnel, but it's tough to operate the defense the way you want it when you don't have Buckner for 9-10 games and Sauce Gardner out with the calf and Ward with the 3 concussions, right? I mean, it just felt like you never really played with a full deck on that side of the ball.
I think that's part of it, though. You got to find ways to overcome that. That's the NFL. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be ups and downs, and sometimes you got to find ways to win ugly, and especially down the stretch there at the end of the year. We got to find ways with what happened, those uncertain, those unfortunate circumstances with injuries. We got to find ways to win games 17-14, you know what I mean, or whatever it may be, and then we go from there.
When you look back at that, and I think you hit the nail on the head, what are some of the things the guys have told you, hey, this is what we can do just a little different? Because coaching is one thing, but players also have to play a role in that.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's kind of like our off-season study, as we go. Obviously, the players, you're into the, year evaluations with those guys, and they get out. But when they come back in, it's kind of like that's when those conversations really take place, with those guys going forward.
Okay. All right, doubling back to offense, Anthony Richardson obviously dealt with the fluke eye injury before a game, Week 6 against the Arizona Cardinals. I guess a two-parter. Where is he at now? How is he feeling? And then how does he factor into your plans at quarterback going forward?
Yeah, I think, the eye's progressing well. I was really proud of the way he went about his business, in training camp and the way he was preparing and obviously backing up Daniel and then obviously having an unfortunate, eye injury, which was a freak deal that you can't make up. But I was really proud of all that, the way he handled that. And so, we'll see what the future holds with him.
How proud of you were you of Riley Leonard and the steps he took last year, especially late in the year when he's playing and getting a chance to play against the Texans defense that was all in?
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit about that.
I was really pleased with Riley and the way he went about his business and prepared. Obviously, being in that backup role all year, but just learning and soaking in and taking it in like a sponge, and learning from Daniel. And then you get a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers to come in the building and learn from him for a couple weeks. So I think that was big. And then, in the circumstances that he played in, obviously went in the Jacksonville game when Daniel went down and played pretty well there. And then obviously, finishing out the year in Houston, seeing that was good.
Coach, last couple of things because I know you got to run, but we really appreciate your time. I guess just big picture, are you over the way the season ended last year? I know it was disappointing, right, dropping the last 7. But, I mean, how do you compartmentalize
Yeah,
that?
no, I obviously, when the season completely ends and the Super Bowl's over, that's when it's like a reset. Good. Now everyone's 0-0, and here we go again, and it's a new season, and we got to attack it the right way and work our tails off, this offseason to get better and improve. Schematically, roster-wise, we're always looking to get better in that way. And so I'm excited, I'm very optimistic for this season.
I mean, how do you balance we were on fire, we were 8-2, we were clicking and humming, one of the best teams in the NFL in those first 10 games, and then Daniel Jones, like you said, comes up with the broken leg, and then the schedule heats up, the injuries start to hit. I mean, how do you balance the on-fire part versus the disappointing part against the good teams?
Yeah, I think, obviously the start of the season was magical. It was special. You're on a heater for, 10 weeks and you're rolling in top of the division and the number 1 seed. And then you have the unfortunate circumstances. But I think as a coach, too, you got to learn from that and grow from that when those injuries do happen, and sometimes you can't control those. They're part of the game, and you got to find ways to win ugly, and I think that's going to be a big part of what I look at going forward. If this does happen again and injuries happen, like, hey, how are we going to win these games? How are we going to win these tight games going forward?
Did you watch the playoffs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? What aspects of the playoffs did you take away in terms of how this team can make those next steps going forward and break through?
Yeah, I think obviously just getting into the tournament is the biggest part. Once you get in, I think anyone has a chance in this league, and I think it's just getting there first. And so once you get there, obviously you got to be ready to roll in those situations when you get in. But I thought the playoffs were good. There were some back-and-forth games, obviously, and it was fun to watch.
No doubt about it. Sauce Gardner, he's an Indianapolis Colt. He's your first-round pick here in 2026.
That's right.
And I know you're excited about that, but the Colts looking to make hay in rounds 2 and beyond here upcoming in April. Coach, I know you're busy. Crazy times here in the Combine, but we appreciate you stopping by.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.